They said the Duke of Blackwood killed his wife, not with his hands, but with a choice no man should have to make. His daughter hadn't spoken a word since the night her mother bled to death in childbirth 3 years ago. The governess they hired was desperate, penniless, willing to do anything to save her brother from debtor's prison. What no one expected was what happened when a broken man, a silent child, and a woman with nothing to lose were locked together in a house that reeked of death and secrets. By the end, society would be scandalized. A child would stand at a cliff's edge, screaming accusations, and the Duke would make a decision that would destroy his reputation forever. This is that story. Elizabeth Grayson couldn't breathe. The letter trembled in her hands. 72 hours until her brother's arrest. 72 hours to find £300 or lose everything. How did it come to this, she thought, staring at the ink bleeding in the rain. When did I become so desperate I'd sell myself to a stranger? The fire crackled in the Duke of Blackwood's study, but the room felt arctic. He stood with his back to her, a silhouette of rigid control against the flames. The scent of old leather and tobacco hung heavy. When he finally turned, his eyes were glacier cold. "You understand the terms, Miss Grayson?" She forced her voice steady. 1 year as governess to your daughter, £300 upon completion of the contract. Please don't let my voice shake. Please. Correct. His gaze swept over her worn dress, cataloging her desperation like a merchant assessing damaged goods. My daughter has not spoken in 3 years. Every governess before you has failed. I expect you will be no different. He wants me to fail, she realized with a jolt. Why hire me at all then? The words should have crushed her. Instead, something fierce ignited in her chest, the same fire that made her walk 12 miles in freezing rain to reach this interview. Then why offer me the position at all, Your Grace? For the first time, something flickered in those dead eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or curiosity. The clock on the mantel ticked into the silence, each second feeling like judgment. Because Mrs. Thornton at the agency mentioned you taught a blind child to read through touch. If you can work miracles for the hopeless, perhaps you can unlock my daughter. He pulled out a contract, his movements precise, military. But understand this, Charlotte is not to be disturbed with sentiment or pity. You will teach her, nothing more. Teach a traumatized child without sentiment? Elizabeth's mind rebelled. What kind of father demands that? But she thought of Thomas, of her mother's tears, of debtor's prison and transportation and ruin. Elizabeth's hands shook as she reached for the pen. The metal was cold against her fingers, heavy with finality. Behind his coldness, she heard something else. Fear. This man was terrified of his own child, the nib scratched across paper. With each letter of her signature, she signed away her freedom, and possibly her heart. Ink stained her fingertip like blood. Welcome to Blackwood Manor, Miss Grayson. I hope you don't regret this decision. I already do, but her brother's life depended on her not showing it. As she stood to leave, the Duke spoke again, his voice rough. One more thing. My daughter screams in the night. Don't be alarmed. Don't try to comfort her. It only makes it worse. What kind of hell am I walking into? But Elizabeth knew she'd already crossed the threshold. There was no going back now. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that in 72 hours she'd be fighting not just for her brother's life, but for her own heart, and for a little girl whose silence held secrets that could destroy them all. The carriage ride to Blackwood Manor took 6 hours through autumn rain. Elizabeth pressed her forehead against the cold glass, watching England blur into gray. The glass smelled of mildew and old velvet. Inside her reticule, the advance payment, £50, felt like lead. Blood money, she thought. That's what this is. Blood money for entering a house everyone whispers is cursed. You're going to the Duke's estate. The innkeeper's wife had paled when Elizabeth asked for directions that morning. The poor thing. No governess lasts more than a month there. Why not? The child. Some say she's possessed. Others say she saw something the night her mother died. Something that stole her voice. The woman crossed herself. And the Duke himself? Well, they say grief drove him mad. Mad? The word echoed in Elizabeth's mind now. I've agreed to live with a madman and his possessed daughter. Mother would lock me in the attic if she knew. But what choice did she have? Thomas's face, gaunt, desperate, aged beyond his 25 years by gambling debts, haunted her. If he went to debtor's prison, he'd never survive. Soft hands, gentleman's education. The other prisoners would tear him apart. The carriage turned through iron gates. Elizabeth's courage wavered. The manor rose from the mist like a tombstone, all sharp angles and dead windows. No lights burned in welcome, no smoke from chimneys, as if the house itself had stopped breathing. Turn back, her instincts screamed. Tell the driver to turn around. £50 isn't worth your life. But she thought of her mother's face when the creditors came, of Thomas weeping into his hands, of their tiny cottage that would be seized, leaving them with nothing. The driver refused to meet her eyes as he deposited her trunk. "Ring the bell, miss. Someone will come, eventually." His voice held pity and fear. Then he was gone, leaving her alone before those massive oak doors. Rain soaked through her cloak, icy water trickling down her spine, her shoes squelched in mud, the scent of rotting leaves and something else, decay, filled her nostrils. She thought, this is how horror stories begin. A desperate woman, a cursed house, a man too damaged to save. But she rang the bell anyway. The sound echoed through emptiness. Minutes passed, rain plastered her hair to her face, her fingers went numb. Finally, just as she considered whether sleeping in the stables was preferable to hypothermia, the door groaned open. An ancient butler peered out, his face a map of wrinkles. His eyes were kind but sad, infinitely sad. "Miss Grayson, I presume. I am Harrison. The Duke has been detained. I will show you to your quarters." No warmth, no welcome, just the cold embrace of a house that felt more tomb than home. The entrance hall smelled of dust and old flowers, funeral flowers, she realized with a chill. As she followed Harrison through shadowed corridors, portraits glared down, dead Blackwoods judging the living. Candlelight flickered, casting grotesque shadows. Every floorboard creaked, every corner held whispers. Then, a child's scream shattered the silence. High-pitched, terrified, abruptly cut short, as if someone had clamped a hand over the source. Elizabeth's heart slammed against her ribs. What was that? Harrison's expression never changed. No surprise, no concern, just weary acceptance. "That, Miss Grayson, is your pupil." God help me, Elizabeth thought. What have I agreed to? But even as dread coiled in her stomach, something else stirred. Determination. Because that scream, that horrible, soul-shattering scream, was the cry of a child in pain, and Elizabeth had never been able to ignore suffering. "I'm here now," she thought fiercely. "I might be trapped by contracts and desperation, but that little girl is trapped by something worse. And maybe, just maybe, we can free each other." Elizabeth's room was a cell, small, sparse, with a window overlooking dead gardens where bare branches clawed at gray sky. The bed was hard, the washbasin cracked. A single candle stub sat on the dresser. But she had no time for self-pity. That scream. It haunted her through the sleepless night. She thought, when I was 7, I fell from a tree and broke my arm. I screamed just like that, pure terror and pain. Mother came running. So did Father. Even the neighbor rushed over. But who comes running for Charlotte? Who comforts her when nightmares steal her breath? At dawn, she found Charlotte's chambers, a suite twice the size of her own, filled with expensive toys no child had touched in years, porcelain dolls with dead glass eyes, a rocking horse gathering dust, books with uncracked spines. The air smelled of disuse and sadness. The girl sat by the window, porcelain perfect in a white dress, 6 years old with her father's dark hair and eyes that held nothing, no curiosity, no fear, nothing. She looks like a doll herself, Elizabeth thought, beautiful and empty and utterly alone. "Good morning, Charlotte. I'm Miss Grayson, your new governess." The child didn't blink, didn't turn. She stared at the gray sky as if Elizabeth didn't exist, as if nothing existed except whatever horrors played behind those vacant eyes. This is what £300 buys. A ghost child in a tomb house? God, what have I gotten myself into? Elizabeth tried lessons. French vocabulary, ignored. Arithmetic, met with that same empty stare. The chalk felt dry against her fingers, leaving white dust on her black dress. When she reached for Charlotte's hand to guide her in writing, the girl flinched so violently she knocked the inkwell over. Black liquid spread across the desk like blood, like death. "Charlotte, it's all right," but the child was already backing away, silent screams in her eyes. Her small body trembled. Her mouth opened, but no sound emerged, just that terrible, voiceless terror. She's reliving something, Elizabeth realized with horror. Something so awful it stole her voice. A maid rushed in, young, severe-faced, shooting Elizabeth an accusing glare. "You've upset her, again, just like the others." "I barely touched her. Miss Grayson!" The maid's voice was ice. "The Duke wishes to see you, now." His study felt like a courtroom. The Duke sat behind his desk, every inch the cold judge. Morning light carved harsh shadows across his face. The scent of whiskey lingered. He'd been drinking, early, heavily. He's as broken as his daughter, Elizabeth thought. Maybe more. "I heard you upset Charlotte within 2 hours of arrival." "She was startled, Your Grace. Nothing more." "My daughter is delicate. I cannot have you forcing your methods." "Delicate?" The word exploded from Elizabeth before she could stop it. Years of watching wealthy families call their problems delicate, while poor children suffered real trauma fueled her anger. "She's traumatized. There's a difference. And keeping her locked in pretty rooms with toys she never plays with isn't protecting her. It's burying her alive." The temperature in the room dropped. The Duke rose slowly, dangerously. His hands gripped the desk edge, knuckles white. "I've done it now," Elizabeth thought, dismissed before I even began. "Thomas will die in prison, and it's my own stupid mouth's fault." "You forget yourself, Miss Grayson." "Perhaps, but you hired me to help your daughter, not to maintain the status quo that's been failing her for 3 years. Her voice shook, but held. "Every previous governess treated her like broken china. I'm treating her like a human being." Their eyes locked. His jaw worked. Fury and something else, pain, warred in his expression. For one terrible moment, she thought he'd dismiss her instantly. Instead, something cracked in that glacial facade. His shoulders sagged, just slightly. Just enough. "What would you suggest?" His voice was raw, stripped of authority, just a father drowning in helplessness. "He's asking me. Actually asking. Let me try something unconventional. Give me 1 week without interference. And if you fail, then I'll leave without demanding the full payment." The offer tasted like ash, like sacrificing Thomas. But she meant it. He studied her for an eternity. She studied him back, saw the circles under his eyes, the tremor in his hands he tried to hide, the way he wouldn't look at Charlotte's portrait on the wall. "You're not a monster," she realized. "You're just terrified." 1 week, Miss Grayson. But if you harm her further..." He didn't finish the threat. He didn't need to. That afternoon, Elizabeth noticed it. A door in the west corridor different from the others. Darker wood, heavy lock, dust thick on the handle. The air around it felt different, colder, heavier with secrets. When she asked Harrison about it, his face turned gray. His hands trembled on the tea tray. "The late Duchess's chambers, miss. No one enters. The Duke's orders. He locked them the day after she died and forbade anyone from speaking her name." Forbade speaking her name? Elizabeth's heart ached. No wonder Charlotte can't heal. How do you mourn someone you're not allowed to remember? But late that night, unable to sleep, Elizabeth found herself drawn back to that forbidden door. Her conscience screamed at her to stop. Her contract explicitly stated obedience. Violation meant dismissal. But Charlotte screamed again tonight, she thought, for 10 full minutes, and no one came, not even her father. The lock was old, her hairpin was resourceful, the click echoed like a gunshot in the silent house. "I'm going to be dismissed. I'm going to ruin everything. But that little girl needs..." Inside, time had stopped. Moonlight streamed through uncovered windows. The Duke hadn't even closed the curtains. Dust motes danced like ghosts. A 4-poster bed still made, dresses in the wardrobe still smelling faintly of lavender and roses. And in the corner, a nursery door, slightly ajar. "Turn back, you'll be dismissed. Thomas will die." But something pulled her forward. The nursery was a treasure trove, a rocking horse with a real mane, a dollhouse painted like Blackwood Manor itself, and on a shelf, a music box shaped like a swan. Her fingers trembled as she wound the key. The mechanism was stiff from disuse, but then tinkling notes filled the air. A lullaby, simple, heartbreaking. The melody wrapped around her heart and squeezed, and from somewhere in the house she heard it. A child's gasp, footsteps, running. Elizabeth spun. Charlotte stood in the doorway, eyes wide, not empty now, alive, burning with recognition, focused on the music box with an intensity that stole breath. "Do you remember this?" Elizabeth whispered. Charlotte took one step forward, then another. Her small hand reached out, trembling. When her fingers touched the swan, a single tear rolled down her cheek. And for the first time in 3 years, Lady Charlotte Blackwood smiled. But behind her, in the shadows, a larger figure appeared, the Duke, watching, his face a battlefield of emotions Elizabeth couldn't read. How long has he been standing there, she thought, and why does he look like his heart is breaking all over again? The scream tore through Blackwood Manor at 3 in the morning. Elizabeth bolted upright, heart hammering, not Charlotte this time, deeper, raw with agony, a man's voice. The Duke. "He's dying," was her first thought. Something's happened, an intruder, a heart attack. She grabbed her robe and ran through dark corridors, bare feet slapping cold marble. The chill bit through her nightgown. Her breath came in gasps, following the sound, following the anguish. It led her to the Duke's chambers. The door stood ajar, lamplight spilling out like blood. She should have turned back. Propriety demanded it, her contract demanded it, but another scream, this one a name, stopped her cold. "Margaret, no, the blood! God, so much blood!" He's dreaming, reliving her death. Elizabeth pushed the door open. The Duke thrashed in his bed, sheets tangled around him like chains. Sweat soaked his nightshirt, plastering it to his chest. His hands clawed at invisible horrors. His face, that cold, controlled face, was contorted in agony so raw it hurt to witness. "Your Grace!" She rushed to his side, gripping his shoulders. His skin burned with fever. "Wake up, you're dreaming!" His eyes flew open, wild, unseeing, drowning in nightmare. In one violent motion, he grabbed her wrists, crushing them in his grip. His fingers were iron. Pain shot up her arms. "Don't leave me," he gasped. "Please, I can't save you. The baby's coming. There's so much blood." He thinks I'm her. He thinks I'm Margaret dying. I'm not Margaret. Elizabeth kept her voice steady despite the pain screaming through her wrists, despite her own fear. "I'm Elizabeth Grayson. You're in Blackwood Manor. It's 1847. She's gone. I'm sorry, but she's gone." Reality crashed into him like cold water. His grip loosened. Horror flooded his features as he registered what he'd done, the bruises already forming on her pale skin. "Miss Grayson," his voice cracked. Forgive me. I didn't." She could have fled. Should have. Instead, she sat on the edge of his bed, ignoring every rule of propriety, ignoring the fact that she wore only a thin nightgown and he wore even less. He needs someone. And God help me, I can't walk away from pain. "How long have you had the nightmares?" He turned away, jaw clenched, trying to rebuild his walls. "That is not your concern." 3 years? Since the night she died?" The silence was answer enough. The clock ticked. Rain began pattering against windows. When he spoke again, his words came out broken, shattered. "I held her hand through 12 hours of labor, 12 hours of screaming. The physicians said complications. The baby was breech. They couldn't turn her. They had to choose." His breath hitched. Tears, actual tears, traced down his cheeks. "Margaret begged me to save the baby, her last words, and I agreed. I chose Charlotte over my wife." Oh, God. Elizabeth's throat tightened. Her own eyes burned. That wasn't a choice. That was mercy. Was it? He finally looked at her, and his eyes held such anguish it physically hurt. Because Charlotte won't speak, won't smile, won't live. And I wonder every day if Margaret's ghost punishes me through her silence. If my daughter hates me for killing her mother. This is why he can't look at Charlotte. Not because he doesn't love her. Because he drowns in guilt every time he sees her face. Charlotte doesn't speak because she's grieving too. The words came gentle but firm. She was 3 years old when her mother died. Children that age don't understand death. They just know someone disappeared. And when everyone around them stops talking about that person, stops saying her name, they learn that love means silence. That memory means betrayal. The Duke stared at her. You think I should speak of Margaret to Charlotte? I think both of you need permission to remember her out loud, to say her name without fear, to love her without guilt. Something shifted in his expression, not the ice melting, more like a crack in a dam, pressure building behind it, water threatening to break through. You broke into Margaret's chambers tonight. Elizabeth's blood froze. He knew, of course he knew, and I'm dismissed. Done. You knew? Harrison tells me everything. But there was no anger in his voice, only exhaustion, and something else. Gratitude? I heard the music box. I haven't heard that melody in 3 years. Thought I'd imagined it at first. Then I saw you with Charlotte. He was watching us, watching his daughter smile for the first time in 3 years. Charlotte remembered it. She smiled. His head snapped up. She smiled? Yes. And touched the swan. She wanted to. She chose to. For a long moment, neither spoke. The lamplight flickered, casting shadows that danced like ghosts. Outside, an owl called through the darkness. Rain drummed steadily now, washing the world clean. When the Duke spoke again, his voice was barely audible. I locked those rooms because seeing her things destroyed me. Every dress still smelled like her. Every book still had her notes in the margins. Don't forget the butter. She'd written that in a recipe book, such a mundane thing. But it broke me. I thought if I sealed it away, the pain would stop. Did it? No. The single word held oceans of grief. It just festered, rotted, turned into something uglier. Elizabeth's heart ached for him. This cold, terrifying Duke was just a man drowning in survivor's guilt, just a father who'd made an impossible choice and couldn't forgive himself. Your Grace. Adrian. The name escaped like a confession, like a plea. When it's just us in the dead of night with all my demons exposed, call me Adrian. Let me be just a man, not a duke, not a monster, just Adrian. The intimacy of it should have frightened her. Instead, something warm unfurled in her chest. Dangerous, completely inappropriate, absolutely undeniable. Then you should call me Elizabeth. Their eyes met, held. In that moment, something passed between them, an understanding beyond words. Two wounded souls recognizing each other in the dark, seeing past titles and contracts to the raw humanity underneath. A clock chimed 4. Reality crashed back. I should return to my chambers. But she didn't move, couldn't, neither did he. His eyes traced her face like memorizing salvation. Elizabeth. Her name on his lips sounded like a prayer, like hope. Thank you for not running when you saw what I truly am. And what are you truly? Broken, haunted, unworthy of redemption. No. She reached out, cupping his face, his stubble rough against her palm, his skin still hot. You're human, that's all. Just beautifully, terribly human. As she stood to leave, his hand caught hers, gentle this time. His thumb traced the bruises he'd left on her wrist, already purple, already painful. I hurt you. You were trapped in a nightmare. You didn't know. That's no excuse. He pressed his lips to the bruise. The gesture was so unexpected, so tender, that Elizabeth forgot to breathe, forgot every rule, forgot why this was dangerous. Then he released her, returned to being the Duke, the mask sliding back into place like armor. Sleep well, Miss Grayson. But as she walked back through silent corridors, her wrist still tingling where his lips had touched, Elizabeth knew sleep would be impossible. Because something had shifted tonight, something irreversible. And from Charlotte's room she heard it, a small voice, barely a whisper, but clear as bells. Mama's song. I remember Mama's song. Charlotte's whispered words changed everything. By morning, the entire household knew. Servants whispered in corners, not malicious gossip, but wonder. Harrison's ancient face actually cracked into something resembling a smile, and Adrian looked at Elizabeth as if she'd performed resurrection. Don't look at me like that, she thought, feeling heat creep up her neck. Like I'm something miraculous. I'm just a woman who opened a door. But she knew it was more. Knew last night in his chambers had altered something fundamental between them. I want you to continue using my wife's things, he said during breakfast, his voice careful, formal, as if they hadn't shared intimacies in the dark. Whatever helps Charlotte. But his eyes held something else, something that made Elizabeth's pulse quicken inappropriately. Something that whispered, I see you. I know you. And I'm terrified of what that means. The breakthrough came 3 days later. Elizabeth discovered a pianoforte in the music room, its keys thick with dust. The scent of old wood and neglect hung heavy. Margaret's music book still sat on the stand. Chopin, Beethoven, simple English folk songs with handwritten notes in the margins. Charlotte loved this one, Margaret had written beside a lullaby. Play slowly. She falls asleep by the third verse. Elizabeth's throat tightened. She was a mother, just a mother trying to help her daughter sleep. And now she's gone and I'm reading her words and using her things, and am I replacing her or honoring her? Her fingers found the keys, rusty, out of tune, but still capable of beauty. She began to play. Within seconds, Charlotte appeared in the doorway, silent, drawn like a moth to flame. Her small face was alight with something Elizabeth hadn't seen before: recognition, joy, hope. Would you like to learn? Elizabeth patted the bench beside her. Charlotte hesitated, then nodded. Actually nodded. Progress. Small, precious progress. We'll start with this hand. See? Press here, then here. Elizabeth guided small fingers across ivory keys. The keys were cold, the texture smooth and slightly yellowed. Now you try. The notes came halting, uncertain, but they came. What Elizabeth didn't know, Adrian stood in the corridor, frozen. He'd been passing by when music, real music, not the phantom melodies that haunted his nightmares, flooded through the house. His chest constricted. Margaret used to play every evening. I'd read in my study while her music washed over me, taking her talent for granted. After her death, I locked this room too. Couldn't bear the silence where her songs should be. But now his daughter's clumsy notes mixed with Elizabeth's gentle corrections, and it was the most beautiful sound he'd ever heard. Good. Now this finger moves to, yes, perfect, Charlotte. His daughter was playing. His silent ghost child was playing piano and smiling and living. And Elizabeth, God help him, Elizabeth, looked radiant in profile. Sunlight streamed through windows, catching gold in her brown hair. The light made her skin glow. Her entire being radiated warmth, patience, life, everything his cold manner had lost. Don't, he warned himself. She's an employee. She's beneath your station. This is gratitude, nothing more. You're confusing rescue with love. But gratitude didn't explain why his hands clenched when he imagined her leaving. Why her laugh made him feel like drowning and breathing simultaneously. Why he'd started finding excuses to walk past her chambers, her lessons, anywhere she might be. I'm falling, he realized with horror. I'm falling for my daughter's governess like some penny dreadful villain, and I can't stop. God help me, I don't want to stop. Your Grace? Adrian jerked back. Harrison stood there, knowing eyes twinkling behind wire spectacles. You've been standing here 20 minutes, sir. Has it been that long? Has she noticed? I was merely ensuring the lesson progresses adequately. Of course, Your Grace. Harrison's tone suggested he believed nothing of the sort. Shall I inform Cook you'll take tea in the music room today? It was a trap. Taking tea there meant revealing he'd been listening, meant proximity to Elizabeth, meant danger to his carefully reconstructed control. Yes, Adrian heard himself say. Inform Cook. The old butler actually smiled. Traitor. An hour later, Harrison arrived with the tea service. Charlotte squealed, actually squealed, when she saw the lemon cakes. Elizabeth looked up, startled to find the Duke entering behind the butler. He's been listening, she realized. How long has he been listening? Your Grace, we didn't mean to disturb. You're not disturbing. He settled into a chair, projecting casual authority while his heart hammered traitorously. I wish to observe Charlotte's progress. Liar, she thought. You wish to be near me. I can see it in your eyes. And the terrifying part? She wished it too. Tea became a daily ritual. Adrian would appear at 4 o'clock precisely, ostensibly to monitor his daughter. But his eyes kept drifting to Elizabeth's hands on the keys, the curve of her neck when she bent to help Charlotte, the way she bit her lower lip when concentrating. And sometimes, sometimes, he'd catch her watching him with those intelligent eyes, and he'd see the same dangerous awareness reflected back. This can't continue. It absolutely cannot continue. But on the 8th day, when Charlotte played an entire simple melody without mistakes, the child did something that shattered every remaining wall. She turned to her father, lifted her arms, and spoke. Papa, listen, I played Mama's song. 2 sentences, simple words, but they unmade him. Adrian dropped to his knees, gathering his daughter close. His shoulders shook. Charlotte's small hands patted his back, comforting him, her broken father. Don't cry, Papa. Miss Elizabeth says Mama wants us happy, that she's watching from heaven and smiling. He looked up at Elizabeth through tears. She stood frozen, her own eyes glistening, hands pressed to her mouth. She told Charlotte about heaven, about Margaret watching. She gave my daughter permission to remember her mother with joy instead of guilt. Did you tell her that? Yes. Her voice wavered. I hope that wasn't presumptuous. Thank you. The words came raw, stripped of every pretense. Thank you for giving me my daughter back, for teaching her it's safe to love again. Their gazes locked, the air between them crackled with unspoken things, with gratitude, with longing, with the beginning of something that could destroy them both. Charlotte yawned, breaking the spell. I'm sleepy, Papa. Let's get you to bed, darling. Elizabeth moved to take her hand. No. Charlotte looked between them with a child's perfect intuition. Both, Papa and Miss Elizabeth, together. So they walked together through twilight corridors, a makeshift family. Adrian carried his daughter while Elizabeth walked beside them, so close their shoulders almost touched, so close he could smell her soap, lavender like Margaret's, but somehow different, uniquely her. After Charlotte fell asleep, they stood in the hallway, alone. The house held its breath. Elizabeth, his voice was rough, what you've done for us, I was hired to teach her, that's all. That's not all. He stepped closer, dangerous. You've brought life back to this tomb. You've made my daughter speak. You've made me. Made you what? She whispered. Feel, hope, want, love. But a door opened down the hall. A maid appeared, arms full of linens. Reality intruded. Good night, Miss Grayson. He retreated into formality like armor. As he walked away, Adrian didn't see Elizabeth lean against the wall, hand pressed to her racing heart. Didn't hear her whispered confession to the empty corridor. What have I done? I'm falling in love with a duke. And when this ends, when my contract expires, it will destroy me. Because she wasn't falling for the Duke of Blackwood. She'd already fallen. The invitation arrived on cream vellum, sealed with purple wax. The paper felt expensive between Elizabeth's fingers, the kind of quality she'd never be able to afford. Lady Victoria Ashford requests the pleasure of accepting the Duke of Blackwood's hospitality this coming Saturday. Elizabeth saw Adrian's jaw tighten as he read it in the morning room. Charlotte practiced her scales nearby, oblivious to the storm gathering. Who is Lady Victoria? Elizabeth thought, and why does her name make him look like he's swallowed poison? An old family friend, he said, voice carefully neutral. Her late husband was my closest companion during our Cambridge years. She wrote after Margaret's death, offering condolences. That pause, that calculated pause. Elizabeth's stomach twisted. I see. I don't see it all, but I know danger when I smell it. You'll dine with us Saturday. Charlotte has grown accustomed to your presence at meals. It wasn't a request, but it felt like a warning, like, prepare yourself for battle. Lady Victoria Ashford arrived in a carriage that cost more than Elizabeth's family home. Tall, elegant, with raven hair arranged in the latest London fashion, she moved like a woman accustomed to conquest. Her dress, deep emerald silk that whispered with every step, probably cost what Elizabeth earned in 5 years. She's beautiful, Elizabeth thought, and she knows it, and she's here for him. Adrian, Victoria glided forward, kissing both his cheeks in the continental manner. Her perfume, jasmine and something cloying, overwhelmed the entrance hall. You look well. Grief becomes you somehow, gives you depth. The familiarity in her touch made something ugly coil in Elizabeth's chest, something she recognized with shame as jealousy. Victoria, thank you for coming. Adrian's voice remained neutral, but he didn't pull away, didn't correct the intimacy. They have history, Elizabeth realized, and I'm just the hired help watching from the shadows. May I introduce Miss Grayson, Charlotte's governess? Victoria's gaze swept over Elizabeth like a merchant assessing damaged goods. Her smile was all teeth, no warmth. How quaint. A governess who dines with the family. How progressive of you, Adrian. The insult was wrapped in velvet, but its blade cut deep. Elizabeth felt her cheeks burn. I don't belong here. I never did. I'm playing at being something I'm not. Miss Grayson has worked wonders with Charlotte, Adrian said. His defense should have warmed Elizabeth. Instead, it felt inadequate, obligatory. Has she? Victoria's smile sharpened like a knife being honed. Then I must see this miracle child. Where is the little mouse? Mouse. Even Charlotte received dismissive treatment from this woman. Dinner was torture. Victoria positioned herself beside Adrian, monopolizing conversation with memories Elizabeth couldn't share. Cambridge days, London seasons, people Elizabeth had never met and never would. The dining room smelled of roasted duck and expensive wine. Crystal clinked, silver scraped china, and Elizabeth felt increasingly invisible. Do you remember the Ashworth ball, Adrian? When you and Thomas won that ridiculous wager? Victoria's laugh was crystalline, practiced, perfect. We danced until dawn. Thomas said he'd never seen you so carefree, so alive. That was a lifetime ago. Adrian's voice was tight, his knuckles white around his wineglass. But it doesn't have to be. Victoria's hand drifted to his arm, resting there possessively. You've mourned long enough. 3 years is respectable. Society expects you to remarry. Thomas would have wanted you to find happiness again. She didn't say, with me. She didn't need to. It hung in the air like smoke. Elizabeth focused on her soup, tasting nothing. The silver spoon felt heavy as lead, her corset suddenly too tight. I'm going to be sick. I need to leave this room before I humiliate myself. And what of you, Miss Grayson? Victoria's attention swung like a blade. Where did you train as a governess? Mrs. Thornton's agency, was it? How practical. The condescension dripped like acid. I trained at home. My mother was a vicar's daughter. Elizabeth kept her voice steady through force of will. Ah, so no formal education. Victoria's smile was poison honey. How brave of the Duke to take such a risk with his daughter's future. Though I suppose when one is desperate for help, one cannot be choosy about credentials. She's calling me unqualified, in front of him, in front of everyone. Elizabeth has proven herself invaluable. Adrian cut in, sharper now. Charlotte speaks because of her, laughs because of her, lives because of her. How wonderful. But Victoria's eyes promised war. Though one must wonder, is it professional dedication or something more personal? The implication hung in the air like smoke, like accusation. She knows. Somehow she knows I'm falling for him, and she's going to destroy me for it. Elizabeth's hands clenched beneath the table. She wanted to scream that yes, it was personal, that she loved Charlotte like her own, that she was falling for a man so far above her station it was laughable, that every touch, every glance, every moment with Adrian carved itself into her heart. But she said none of this, just smiled blandly, playing the role of proper governess. I care for all my pupils, Lady Ashford. Liar. You've never cared for anyone the way you care for them. After dinner, Elizabeth excused herself, humiliation burning. From the corridor she heard Victoria's voice carrying, deliberately loud, ensuring she'd overhear. Really, Adrian? A governess at your table? What will people say? You must think of Charlotte's reputation, of your own. The child needs a proper mother, and you need a wife who understands your world, someone of appropriate standing. Victoria, I'm not suggesting anything improper, but Mrs. Thornton has excellent governesses. Older women, less distracting. Women who know their place. Their place. My place. In the servants' quarters, not at his table, not in his life, certainly not in his heart. Elizabeth didn't wait to hear Adrian's response. She fled to her chambers, each step feeling like defeat. She's right, Elizabeth thought bitterly, staring at her reflection. I don't belong here. I'm a temporary fix, nothing more. And when my contract ends, I'll return to poverty while he marries someone like her, someone appropriate. But in Charlotte's room that night, the child clung to her, nose wrinkling. I don't like the dark lady, Miss Elizabeth. She smells wrong. What do you mean, darling? Mama smelled like roses. You smell like books and sunshine. The dark lady smells like wanting, like hunger. It makes my tummy hurt. From the mouths of babes, children always knew, always saw through pretense to truth. The next morning, Harrison delivered a note on silver. Miss Grayson, please join me in the portrait gallery at 2 o'clock. We must discuss Charlotte's curriculum. Blackwood so formal, so distant, as if Saturday night's intimacy had never happened, as if Victoria's presence had reset everything to professional coldness. Of course, Elizabeth thought, he's reminded of what I am, a governess, hired help, nothing more. She almost didn't go. Pride whispered, let him find you. Let him come to your chambers if it's so important. But duty and hope, damn her foolish hope, brought her to the portrait gallery at 2 o'clock precisely. Adrian stood before a massive painting of a woman in white. Margaret. Beautiful. Elegant. Everything Elizabeth would never be. The scent of oil paint and varnish hung in the air. Dust motes danced in afternoon light streaming through tall windows. She was beautiful, Elizabeth whispered, and I am not. I'm plain and poor and utterly inadequate. Yes. His voice was raw, honest. Victoria resembles her. Same height, same coloring, same everything. I think that's why my mother-in-law keeps suggesting he trailed off. But Elizabeth understood. Society wanted him to replace Margaret with a suitable copy, and Victoria fit perfectly, while I fit nowhere. I'm the aberration, the mistake. Do you want to marry Lady Victoria? The question hung between them. Dangerous, inappropriate, but she had to know. Adrian turned, his eyes burning into hers with an intensity that stole breath. What I want, Elizabeth, is highly inappropriate. Her breath caught. What does that mean? What is he saying? Your Grace. Adrian. He stepped closer. The temperature in the room climbed. When it's just us, you call me Adrian, remember? This is dangerous. But she didn't retreat. Couldn't. I should run. This ends in disaster. But God help me, I don't want to run. I know. His hand rose, hovering near her cheek, not touching. The restraint cost him. She could see it in the tremor of his fingers. You should leave before... A door slammed. Victoria's voice echoed through the hall, sharp with false sweetness. Adrian, where are you? We need to discuss the Pemberton ball. Oh, she rounded the corner. Her sharp eyes catalogued everything in an instant. The proximity, the flushed cheeks, the guilt. Elizabeth and Adrian jumped apart like guilty children caught stealing sweets. But it was too late. Victoria had seen, had calculated, had won. Her smile was victorious, cruel. Am I interrupting something? The next morning, Harrison delivered a note on silver. Ms. Grayson, please join me in the portrait gallery at 2 o'clock. We must discuss Charlotte's curriculum. Blackwood. So formal, so distant, as if Saturday night's intimacy had never happened, as if Victoria's presence had reset everything to professional coldness. Of course, Elizabeth thought, crumpling the note, he's reminded of what I am, a governess, hired help, nothing more. She almost didn't go. Pride whispered, let him find you. Let him come to your chambers if it's so important. But duty and hope, damn her foolish hope, brought her to the portrait gallery at 2 o'clock precisely. Adrian stood before a massive painting of a woman in white. Margaret. Beautiful, elegant, everything Elizabeth would never be. The oil paint gleamed in afternoon light, making Margaret seem alive, watching, judging. The scent of old varnish and dust hung heavy. Elizabeth's footsteps echoed on marble. She was beautiful, Elizabeth whispered, and I am not. I am plain and poor and utterly inadequate. Yes, his voice was raw. Victoria resembles her. Same height, same coloring, same grace. I think that's why my mother-in-law keeps suggesting... He trailed off. But Elizabeth understood with crushing clarity. Society wanted him to replace Margaret with a suitable copy, and Victoria fit perfectly, while I fit nowhere. I'm the aberration, the mistake. Do you want to marry Lady Victoria? The question hung between them. Dangerous, inappropriate, but she had to know, had to hear him say it so she could start protecting her heart. Adrian turned, his eyes burning into hers. What I want, Elizabeth, is highly inappropriate. Her breath caught. The room suddenly felt too warm, too small. "Your Grace." "Adrian." He stepped closer. Heat radiated from him. "When it's just us, you call me Adrian, remember?" "I remember everything, every word, every touch, every moment I shouldn't treasure but do." "This is dangerous," but she didn't retreat, couldn't make her feet move. "I know." His hand rose, hovering near her cheek, not touching. The restraint cost him. She could see it in the tremor of his fingers, the tension in his jaw. "You should leave before I do something we'll both regret. Before I forget every rule of propriety and—" A door slammed. Victoria's voice echoed through the hall. "Adrian, where are you? We need to discuss the Pemberton ball." "Oh!" She rounded the corner, and her sharp eyes catalogued everything in a single glance. The proximity, the flushed cheeks, the tension crackling between them, the guilt written across their faces. Elizabeth and Adrian jumped apart like guilty children. But it was too late. Victoria had seen, had calculated, had won. Her smile was victorious. "Am I interrupting something?" "Not at all, Lady Ashford," Adrian said smoothly, though his jaw remained tight. "Miss Grayson and I were discussing Charlotte's progress in French composition." Victoria's eyes glittered like ice. How dedicated. Though perhaps such discussions should occur in the schoolroom. The portrait gallery seems an odd choice for academic matters, unless, of course, there's more to discuss than French verbs. The insinuation landed like a slap. Elizabeth felt her cheeks burn with shame and fury. She's calling me a seductress, me, as if I have any power here. "You're quite right. If you'll excuse me, Your Grace." Elizabeth fled before Adrian could respond, before she said something that would confirm every ugly suspicion Victoria was planting. Behind her, Victoria's honeyed voice drifted. "Really, darling, you must be more careful. Servants talk, and governesses can be opportunistic, especially pretty young ones with families in debt." She knows about Thomas. She knows everything. Elizabeth made it to her chambers before the tears came. Hot, angry, helpless. "I have to leave before this destroys me, before I do something truly foolish like confess I love him." For 3 days, she avoided Adrian, took meals in her room, claiming headaches, kept Charlotte's lessons confined to the schoolroom, built walls around her traitorous heart. But the manor wasn't large enough to hide forever. On Thursday, Charlotte had a breakthrough during mathematics. She completed an entire page of sums without assistance, then looked up with shining eyes. "Did I do well, Mama?" The world stopped. Elizabeth's breath caught in her throat. "Charlotte, sweetheart, I'm not—" "But you are." The child's voice held absolute certainty, perfect logic. "You read to me like Mama did. You play piano like Mama did. You make Papa smile like Mama did. So you're my Mama now." Tears blurred Elizabeth's vision. "Oh, God! Oh, my sweet girl! Oh, darling!" She pulled Charlotte close, this miracle child who'd claimed her so completely. And in that embrace, Elizabeth felt it, the weight of love she had no right to feel. Not for Charlotte, not for Adrian, not for this life that could never truly be hers. But I do love them, both of them. And leaving will break all 3 of our hearts. "I love you, Mom Elizabeth," Charlotte whispered against her neck. "I love you too, little one. So very much." What she didn't see, Adrian standing in the doorway, hand pressed to his chest as if physically wounded. He'd come to request Elizabeth join them for afternoon tea. Instead, he witnessed his daughter, his silent, broken daughter, claim the governess as her mother. The joy consumed him, and beneath it lurked terror. Charlotte will be devastated when Elizabeth's contract ends, when she returns to her own family. The thought of explaining that love isn't permanent, that people leave. He couldn't do it again, couldn't watch Charlotte retreat into silence, couldn't survive losing Elizabeth after just finding her, which meant only one impossible solution. Elizabeth had to stay forever. But how? Society would never accept a governess elevated beyond her station. His mother-in-law would be apoplectic. Victoria was already circling like a shark scenting blood. Unless the idea was insane, scandalous, possibly brilliant. I could marry her, make her my duchess, Charlotte's legal mother, damn society and their rules. That evening, Victoria cornered him in his study. She'd extended her visit indefinitely, claiming concern for poor Charlotte's well-being. But her eyes held calculation, ambition. Adrian, we must discuss the governess situation." She settled into a chair uninvited, her emerald dress perfectly arranged. "The girl is clearly overly familiar with Charlotte. It's unhealthy for the child." "Charlotte loves her." "Charlotte is 6 years old. She doesn't understand appropriate boundaries." Victoria leaned forward, voice dropping to intimate concern. "Darling, I know you're grateful for the child's progress, but Miss Grayson is becoming a problem. The way she looks at you and the way you look at her, it's inappropriate, scandalous. If word reaches London, your reputation will be destroyed. Charlotte's prospects will be ruined before she's even presented." Each word was a calculated strike. And worse, they were true. "But I don't care. Not anymore." "What do you suggest?" The question tasted like poison. Victoria's smile was triumphant. "Replace her. I know a wonderful governess, older, experienced, impeccably credentialed. Your mother-in-law recommended her personally. Charlotte will adjust. Charlotte won't speak again if Elizabeth leaves. Then we'll find another specialist." "But Adrian," she rose, moving close enough that her perfume overwhelmed him. Too sweet, cloying, nothing like Elizabeth's simple lavender soap. "You need to think clearly. This infatuation isn't worthy of you, of your position." "It's not an infatuation." "Isn't it?" Her hand touched his chest. Possessive. "I loved Thomas. You loved Margaret. We both understand loss. But we're adults, not children. We know our duty is to move forward appropriately, with suitable partners, partners who understand our world." She was offering herself, making it clear without being crude. She wants to be Duchess, wants my title, my wealth, my position. But not me. Never me. "Victoria, I care for you as Thomas's widow, nothing more." Her expression flickered, hurt, then rage, quickly masked. "I see. So you'd choose professional ruin and social ostracism for a penniless governess? You'd throw away everything for a woman who's clearly using you?" "She's not using me." "How can you be sure?" Victoria's voice turned sharp, desperate. "She arrived penniless, her brother in debt. And suddenly the Duke is smitten? It's the oldest game in the world, Adrian. And you're too blind to see it." "She's wrong. Elizabeth doesn't want my title. Doesn't want anything except what? Love? Family? The same things he wanted? I think you should leave in the morning, Victoria." Her face went white, then red. "You're making a mistake. And when this governess destroys you, don't come begging for my help." She swept from the room, leaving silence and the scent of jasmine behind. Adrian poured whiskey with shaking hands. The amber liquid burned going down but brought no clarity. "I love her. I love Elizabeth. And somehow I have to convince her, and the world, that we deserve each other." But the knock that came made his blood run cold. Harrison entered, face grave. "Your Grace, I felt you should know. Lady Victoria sent a footman to London this evening. With letters." "Letters to whom?" "I couldn't say for certain, sir, but the direction was to Lady Margaret's mother, the Dowager Countess of Wexford." Adrian's blood turned to ice. His mother-in-law was a formidable woman who'd never approved of Margaret's love match. If Victoria had written accusing him of impropriety with a governess, painting Elizabeth as a fortune hunter. She'll come. She'll come and destroy everything. "When will the letter arrive?" "Tomorrow afternoon, Your Grace," which meant the Dowager would descend on Blackwood Manor within 2 days. And if she found even a hint of scandal, she had the social power to destroy Elizabeth's reputation, remove Charlotte from his custody, and ruin everything. Adrian didn't sleep. By dawn, he'd made his decision: warn Elizabeth before the Dowager arrived, give her the choice to leave quietly or weather the storm together. But Harrison intercepted him in the hallway at 7 o'clock, holding a cream envelope sealed with unfamiliar wax. The paper felt expensive, ominous. "This arrived for Miss Grayson, Your Grace, delivered by private courier. The man insisted it was urgent." Adrian's instincts screamed danger. "Where is Miss Grayson?" "In the breakfast room with Lady Charlotte, sir." He found them laughing over toast and jam. Charlotte was telling some elaborate story about a dragon who loved music, her small hands gesturing wildly. Elizabeth's eyes sparkled with genuine joy, the kind of happiness that made his chest ache. She's beautiful when she laughs, not society beautiful, something better, real. The sight should have warmed him. Instead, dread coiled in his gut like a serpent. "Miss Grayson, a letter has arrived for you." Her smile faded at his tone. "A letter? From whom? Please don't let it be what I think it is." "I don't know." He handed it over, watching her face drain of color as she read. Her hands began to tremble. The paper crackled. "No. God, no. Miss Grayson, your brother's debts have been purchased by new creditors. Unless the full £300 is paid within 24 hours, he will be arrested and transported to debtor's prison. The funds you sent previously have been deemed insufficient. Do not attempt to contact your family. This is your only warning. A friend." Elizabeth's hands trembled so violently the paper crackled. "No, no, this can't be. I sent £50. The rest was guaranteed upon completion of my contract. 24 hours. They're giving her 24 hours. Elizabeth?" Adrian reached for her, but she jerked away. "Someone bought Thomas's debts." Her voice was hollow. "Dead. Someone who wants me gone from here." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Victoria. It had to be Victoria. She'd orchestrated this entire thing. She's forcing Elizabeth to choose, her brother or Charlotte, her family or me. "I'll handle this," Adrian said, voice hard. "I'll pay the £300 today." "With what justification?" Elizabeth's laugh was bitter, sharp as broken glass. "I've been here 6 weeks. My contract isn't complete. Society already whispers about the governess who dines with the Duke. If you pay my debts, the scandal will be explosive. They'll say I'm your mistress, that I seduced you for money." She was right, and she was too intelligent not to see the trap Victoria had laid. She's backed into a corner. No matter what she chooses, she loses. Charlotte tugged Elizabeth's sleeve, confused, frightened. "Mom, Elizabeth, why are you crying?" "I'm not crying, darling." But tears streamed down her face, leaving tracks through powder. I need a moment." She fled the room. Adrian started to follow, but Charlotte's small hand caught his. "Papa, don't let Mama Elizabeth leave, please. I don't want to be quiet again. My daughter is begging me to save the woman I love, and I have no idea how." "I won't, sweetheart. I promise." A promise he had no idea how to keep. He found Elizabeth in the garden, pacing among dead roses. The morning mist clung to her skirts like ghosts. Her breath came in gasps, panic, desperation, rage, all warring on her face. The air smelled of frost and decay. Winter was coming. "Elizabeth, don't." She held up a hand. "Please don't make this harder than it already is. I can pay the debts. I don't care what people say." "But I care." Her voice cracked. Raw. "Don't you see? If you pay, everyone will assume that we've been..." She couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't give voice to the accusation. "Lovers. They'll call us lovers, and they won't be entirely wrong." Would that be so terrible? The words escaped before he could stop them. She stared at him. "What?" Adrian stepped closer, caution abandoned, propriety burned. Would it be so terrible if people assumed we were lovers? If the rumors were true? "Say it. Tell her everything, before it's too late." "Adrian, you're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking clearly for the first time in 3 years." His hands cupped her face, thumbs wiping away tears. Her skin was cold, soft. "I love you, Elizabeth. I've fought it, denied it, but I can't anymore. I love your kindness, your courage, the way you make my daughter laugh. I love how you challenge me, how you see past the title to the man underneath. I love..." "Stop." Her voice broke, shattered. "Please stop." "Why?" "Because I love you too." The confession tore from her like a wound opening. "I love you so much it terrifies me. But we can't. Society won't. Your position..." "She loves me. She actually loves me." "Damn society." He kissed her then, desperate and tender. She melted into him for one perfect moment, her lips soft, tasting of salt and tea, before reality crashed back. She pushed away, putting distance between them. "Your mother-in-law arrives tomorrow. Victoria has poisoned every well in London by now. Charlotte will be taken from you if there's even a hint of scandal. Your title, your reputation, everything. You'll lose it all. I don't care. I'd give it all up for you. I have to leave. It's the only way to protect you both." "No? Adrian, marry me." The world stopped. Birds fell silent. Even the wind held its breath. Elizabeth stared at him as if he'd lost his mind. What? Marry me. Today, by special license. Before the Dowager arrives. Before Victoria can spread more poison. Before anything else can tear us apart. The plan crystallized as he spoke, gaining clarity, gaining purpose. Is the only way to silence the rumors. Make you my Duchess, Charlotte's legal mother. No one can touch you then. It's insane. It's perfect. It's the only way. That's insane. But hope flickered in her eyes. Dangerous, beautiful hope. Is it? Or is it the sanest thing I've considered in years? He gripped her hands, cold, trembling. I know this is fast. I know you deserve courtship, romance, time. But we don't have time. So I'm asking, will you marry me, Elizabeth Grayson? Not because of society or scandal, but because I cannot imagine my life without you in it? She opened her mouth, closed it. Tears spilled over, tracking down her cheeks like rain. Say yes. Please, God, say yes. I'm a governess. You're a duke. The world will crucify us. Let them try. His voice was steel. I've spent 3 years in hell, Elizabeth. You brought me back to life. You gave me my daughter. You made me remember what happiness feels like. I won't lose that. I won't lose you. What about Charlotte? What if Charlotte already calls you Mama? This just makes it official. The argument was crumbling. He could see it in her eyes, the moment doubt gave way to desperate hope, to possibility. If we do this, she whispered, there's no going back. Society will shun us. Your family will disown you. We'll be pariahs. Then we'll be pariahs together. Adrian. A scream shattered the morning, high-pitched, terrified. Charlotte. They ran. The house was in chaos, servants rushing, Harrison shouting orders, and Charlotte's room, empty, window open, curtains billowing in wind that smelled of coming storm. She heard us in the garden, Elizabeth gasped, horror dawning. She thought I was leaving. Charlotte, Adrian's bellow echoed through the manor. Search the grounds, now! Harrison appeared, face ashen. Your Grace, one of the stable boys saw Lady Charlotte running toward the cliffs, toward Widow's Peak. Elizabeth's blood turned to ice. Widow's Peak, where Margaret died, where the cliff edge is unstable and the drop is— Get horses, Adrian commanded, but Elizabeth was already running, skirts hiked, propriety forgotten. Not her. Please, God, not her. I'll do anything. Just not her. Rain began to fall, cold, stinging drops that quickly became a deluge. The path to the cliffs turned to mud beneath her feet, threatening to send her sprawling, but she didn't slow. Couldn't slow. Thunder cracked overhead. Lightning illuminated the world in stark white flashes. And there, a small figure in a gray coat standing at the cliff's edge, where stone met empty air and death waited below. Charlotte! Elizabeth's scream tore her throat raw. The child turned. Rain plastered her hair to her face. Even from 50 yards away, Elizabeth saw her expression: devastation, betrayal, pure terror. You're leaving me, just like Mama left me. Charlotte! Elizabeth's scream tore her throat raw. Rain pounded down, turning the world into gray chaos. The child turned. Rain plastered her hair to her small face. Even from 50 yards away, Elizabeth saw her expression: devastation, betrayal, pure terror. You're leaving me, just like Mama left me. No. Oh, God, no. She heard everything in the garden. No, darling, I'm not. Elizabeth edged closer, every instinct screaming caution. The cliff edge was unstable, crumbling stone and loose earth. One wrong step, and they'd both plummet to the rocks below. The scent of wet earth and danger filled her nostrils. Keep her talking. Keep her focused on you, not the edge. Charlotte, please step back from the edge. Let's talk about this inside where it's warm. You said you loved me, the child's voice cracked with anguish. You said I was your daughter. But you're going away and I'll be alone again. Everyone leaves. Everyone dies. The ground beneath Charlotte's feet crumbled slightly, pebbles tumbling over the edge, disappearing into fog and emptiness below. Elizabeth's heart stopped. One more inch. Just one more inch and she'll fall. Charlotte, listen to me. Elizabeth kept her voice calm despite terror clawing her throat, despite rain soaking through her dress, making her shiver. Your mama didn't want to leave you. She loved you more than anything in this world, but sometimes terrible things happen that we can't control, things that steal people away before their time. Please understand. Please don't move. Then why should I believe you won't leave too? Fair question. Devastating question. The question of a child who'd lost too much. Elizabeth thought, how do I promise forever to someone who knows forever is a lie? How do I make her trust when trust has only brought her pain? Because I choose to stay. Elizabeth took another careful step forward, mud sucking at her shoes. Your mama didn't get a choice. Death took her before she was ready. But I have a choice, and I choose you, Charlotte. Every single day, I choose you. But Papa said you have to go. I heard him in the garden. He said you can't stay because of... Her child's mind couldn't grasp the complexities of society and scandal and debt. She heard fragments, misunderstood everything. That's not what your papa meant. Another step. 3 feet away now. Elizabeth's hands trembled, reaching out slowly. We were discussing how to make me stay forever, how to make it official so no one could ever send me away. Official how? Thunder cracked overhead, making them both flinch. Rain came harder now, sheets of water obscuring vision, making the cliff edge even more treacherous. I have to tell her the truth, all of it, even if I have no right to promise. By making me your real mama, through marriage to your father, by becoming a family, a proper family that no one can separate. Charlotte's eyes widened, hope and fear warring on her small face. You'd marry Papa and stay forever? Yes. The word was a vow, a prayer. If you'll have me. For one eternal second, Charlotte stood frozen, a child at the edge of a precipice, deciding whether to trust again, whether to believe in forever one more time. Then she lunged forward, away from the cliff into Elizabeth's arms. They collapsed together in the mud. Elizabeth wrapped herself around the child, feeling Charlotte's heart hammering against her own. The girl's body shook with sobs, years of grief and fear pouring out in great wrenching gasps. I love you, Mom Elizabeth, Charlotte sobbed into her shoulder. I love you too, little bird. So much. Elizabeth's own tears mixed with rain. I will never leave you, never. I promise. I'll keep that promise if it costs me everything. Hoofbeats thundered behind them. Adrian vaulted from his horse before it fully stopped, sliding in mud as he reached them. Charlotte, Elizabeth, his voice was raw terror. He dropped to his knees, gathering them both into his arms. His entire body shook. When Elizabeth looked up, she saw tears streaming down his face, mixing with rain, washing away 3 years of ice. I thought, when Harrison said the cliffs, I thought I'd lost you both. We're safe, Elizabeth whispered. We're all safe. For a long moment they stayed there, a knot of 3 people clinging to each other in the rain. A makeshift family bound by crisis and love, and the choice to stay when leaving would be easier. Finally, Adrian pulled back enough to meet Elizabeth's eyes. Rain dripped from his hair. His formal coat was ruined with mud, and he'd never looked more real. Did you mean what you said? About marriage? Every word. She didn't hesitate. If you'll have me knowing what it will cost, knowing the scandal we'll face. I'll have the special license by tomorrow. His voice was steel wrapped in tenderness. We marry the day after, before anyone can object, before the dowager arrives, before anything else can tear us apart. People will talk, Elizabeth warned, even as hope bloomed in her chest. Let them. He kissed her forehead, then Charlotte's. I've found something more valuable than reputation. I've found a family. Charlotte looked between them, exhaustion and joy mixing on her small face. We'll be a real family. Forever. Forever, they said in unison. As they rode back to the manor, Charlotte held tight between them on Adrian's horse, wrapped in his coat. Elizabeth felt the weight of what she'd committed to. Society would be merciless. The dowager would be apoplectic. Victoria would spread poison wherever she went. But I don't care. Let them try to separate us. Let them whisper and judge. I've found where I belong. At the manor, Harrison waited with blankets and hot tea, his old eyes twinkling with something like pride. As he wrapped them in warmth, he leaned close to Elizabeth. About time you 3 figured it out, miss. The house has been holding its breath waiting. Even the servants knew before we did. That night, after Charlotte was asleep, exhausted, safe, Clutching Elizabeth's hand even in dreams, Adrian found Elizabeth in the library. She stood before the fire, still damp despite changing clothes, staring into flames. "Having second thoughts?" he asked quietly. "Terrified thoughts," she admitted, turning to face him, "but not second ones." He moved behind her, close enough that she felt his warmth, smelled the soap he'd used after his own bath, sandalwood, and something uniquely him. "The Dowager arrives tomorrow afternoon. We marry tomorrow evening. After that, the scandal begins in earnest." "Tomorrow. Everything changes tomorrow." "I know." Her voice was steady. "And I'm ready. Elizabeth." He turned her to face him, hands gentle on her shoulders. "Last chance to run, to save yourself from the storm that's coming." She cupped his face, feeling stubble rough against her palms, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes. This powerful duke who'd let her see his broken places. "I'm done running. From this, from you, from happiness. Whatever comes, we face it together." His kiss was answer and promise and seal all at once. Deep, claiming, home. What neither of them knew, Victoria's letter had already reached the Dowager, and the old woman was bringing reinforcements, the Bishop of Canterbury, several prominent lords, and enough social weight to crush them all. The real battle was about to begin, and it would test every promise they'd just made. The special license arrived at dawn, delivered by a bishop's courier who didn't hide his disapproval. The parchment felt heavy with authority and judgment. Adrian paid triple the usual fee for discretion, money well spent, though they both knew secrets never stayed secret long. By tonight, half of London will know, Elizabeth thought. By tomorrow, the entire country. Elizabeth stood in Margaret's chambers, her chambers now, soon officially, staring at the wedding dress Harrison had unearthed from storage. Simple ivory silk, no elaborate trim. The fabric whispered like ghosts when she touched it, Margaret's wedding dress to Adrian. "I can't wear this." Her voice was barely audible. "It feels wrong, like I'm trying to replace her, like I'm erasing her memory. She was his wife, his love, and I'm just, what? The replacement? The second choice?" "You're not replacing anyone, miss." Mrs. Brennan, the head housekeeper, adjusted the dress on its stand, her fingers gentle, experienced. "You're becoming someone new. The second Duchess, Lady Charlotte's mother, His Grace's future." But Elizabeth's reflection in the mirror looked like an impostor, a vicar's granddaughter playing at nobility. Her hair was too plain, her figure too unremarkable, her hands too work-worn. "What am I doing? I'm about to marry a duke. Me, Elizabeth Grayson, who darned her own stockings and had never attended a ball in her life." A knock interrupted her spiral. Charlotte burst in, eyes shining with excitement, carrying white roses clutched in her small fists. "Mama Elizabeth, Papa says I can pick flowers for your hair. Can I? Please?" The pure joy on that small face steadied her. This isn't about society, about dresses or titles or what people will say. This is about the child who reclaimed her voice, the man who reclaimed his heart. "Of course, darling. White roses if you can find them." As Charlotte raced out, Adrian appeared in the doorway. Propriety dictated they shouldn't see each other before the ceremony, but propriety had already been thoroughly murdered. "I heard you." He crossed the room, his footsteps echoing on hardwood. "You're doubting." Terrified would be more accurate. She couldn't meet his eyes. "What if I fail? What if I can't be what you need? What if—" "I'm terrified, too." His hands settled on her shoulders, warm through the thin fabric of her dressing gown. "I haven't been a husband in 3 years. I've forgotten how to be anything except cold and controlled. What if I fail you?" He's as scared as I am. This powerful duke is just as terrified. "You're not cold anymore. Because of you." His forehead touched hers, and she smelled sandalwood and rain. "Elizabeth, in 6 hours you'll be my Duchess, my wife, Charlotte's legal mother, and I need you to understand, I'll spend every day for the rest of my life trying to be worthy of you." Her throat tightened. "You already are." The kiss was interrupted by carriage wheels on gravel outside. They froze. The sound of horses, multiple carriages. "No, not yet. We need more time." "That can't be the vicar already," Elizabeth whispered. "It's only 9 o'clock. Harrison's urgent knock came, his knuckles rapping sharp against wood. "Your Grace, the Dowager Countess of Wexford has arrived, with Lady Victoria and the Bishop of Canterbury." The blood drained from Adrian's face. The bishop! My God, Victoria didn't just write a letter, she orchestrated an intervention. They're here to stop it, to destroy us before we even begin. Elizabeth's hands went cold. The bishop had the power to refuse the marriage license, could declare it invalid before ink dried, could destroy everything before it began. What do we do? Adrian's jaw set, that stubborn determination she'd come to love. "We fight. Get dressed, both of you. We're getting married in this house in 6 hours, and hell itself won't stop us." The confrontation happened in the drawing room. The Dowager Countess was a formidable woman of 70, dressed in black mourning she'd never abandoned after Margaret's death, silver hair swept back severely, eyes like flint. Beside her, Victoria smirked with barely concealed triumph, and the bishop, gray-bearded, stern, his robe smelling of incense and authority, looked like judgment incarnate. The air felt thick, suffocating. The scent of Victoria's jasmine perfume competed with the Dowager's lavender water. "Adrian." The Dowager's voice could have frozen magma. "What is this madness I hear about you marrying a governess?" "With all due respect, Your Grace, my marriage plans are not your concern." "Stand firm," Elizabeth thought from where she stood beside him. "Don't let them intimidate you." "Not my concern," the old woman's voice rose. "My daughter's widower plans to dishonor her memory by marrying the help, and you claim it's not my concern?" "I loved Margaret. Then act like it. Marry appropriately. Lady Victoria is from good family, suitable in every way, suitable upbringing, suitable connections, suitable breeding." "I don't love Victoria." Adrian's voice was steel, final. The room exploded into chaos. Victoria's composure shattered like dropped crystal. "You love her? A nobody? A fortune hunter who's clearly seduced you for your title and wealth." "Mind your tongue," Adrian snarled, stepping forward, his hands clenched into fists. "This is falling apart. Everything is falling apart." "Your Grace," the bishop's voice cut through the chaos like a blade, "I've reviewed the circumstances of this proposed union. A duke marrying so far beneath his station, so hastily, after his daughter's governess has lived under his roof for mere weeks. The appearance of impropriety is substantial. Damning even." Elizabeth's stomach dropped. "They're going to stop it. They're going to win, and I'll lose everything." Then Charlotte walked in. The child had heard the shouting from upstairs. How could she not? The entire house reverberated with anger. She wore her best dress, pale blue with white ribbon, clutching a bouquet of white roses in her small hands. Her face was pale but determined. Her eyes swept the room, the angry adults, the cruel woman who'd tried to hurt Mama Elizabeth, the scary old lady in black who looked like a crow. And she walked straight to the bishop, her small shoes clicking on marble. "Are you going to stop my papa from marrying my mama?" Silence crashed down like a physical weight. The bishop blinked, clearly unprepared for interrogation by a 6-year-old. "Child, Miss Grayson is not your mama." "Yes, she is." Charlotte's voice was clear, carrying through the room with perfect conviction. "She taught me to talk again when I was silent for 3 years. She made Papa smile again when he cried every night. She loves us even though we're broken and sad and hard to love sometimes." "Oh, Charlotte, my brave, beautiful girl." "My real mama died," the child continued, tears beginning to track down her cheeks. "I was sad for a long, long time. So long I forgot how to speak. But now I have a new mama, and if you take her away, I'll be sad forever. I'll be silent forever, and I don't want to be silent anymore." Tears streaked the Dowager's face. Her hands trembled. "Charlotte, darling, you never visit Grandmama. You never wrote. You sent 1 letter when Mama died, and then nothing. Nothing for 3 whole years. You forgot about me because I reminded you of Mama." Each word was a knife, delivered with a child's brutal honesty. "But Mama Elizabeth doesn't forget. She stays. She promised she'd stay forever, and you want to make her break her promise." Every word landed like a stone into still water, creating ripples of guilt and shame. The Dowager looked at her granddaughter, really looked, perhaps for the first time since Margaret's death. Saw the girl who'd been silent, who'd been dying inside, who was now vibrantly, beautifully alive. "My God," she whispered, hand pressed to her heart, What have I done? What have I been doing for 3 years while you suffered?" The Dowager Countess sank into a chair, suddenly looking every one of her 70 years. Her hands trembled in her lap. "I've been a coward, avoiding this house because it held too many memories, avoiding my granddaughter because she looked too much like Margaret. Too painful, too real." "She's breaking," Elizabeth realized. "The armor is cracking." Adrian's anger softened fractionally. "Your Grace, no, let me speak." She looked at Elizabeth, really looked for the first time. Not at a governess, at a woman. "You brought my granddaughter back from the dead. You gave her voice. You gave her hope. And I arrive here like some tyrannical judge to destroy that, to destroy you, to destroy the only happiness this family has known in 3 years." Victoria stepped forward, desperation cracking her polished veneer like ice under pressure. "Your Grace, you're not thinking clearly. This girl is manipulating everyone, playing the savior while securing herself a title and fortune." "Enough, Victoria." The Dowager's voice whipped like a lash. "I know manipulation when I see it. I've watched court politics for 50 years. You wrote me lies about impropriety and scandal, hoping I'd stop this marriage so you could position yourself as the suitable alternative." Victoria's face turned scarlet. Her carefully maintained composure shattered. That's not... I merely wanted to protect. You wanted to become a duchess, at any cost, using my grief, using my granddaughter's well-being as leverage." The old woman's eyes were flint. "My late husband played such games, married for position, not love. I won't watch you do the same to my son-in-law." She understands. She actually understands. The bishop cleared his throat, his robes rustling. The scent of incense clung to him. "Be that as it may, Your Grace, the matter of propriety remains. A duke marrying a governess. The scandal will be substantial. The ton will tear them apart." "A duke marrying the woman he loves," Adrian interrupted, voice ringing with conviction. "The woman his daughter loves, the woman who saved this family from drowning in grief." He moved to Elizabeth's side, taking her hand, his fingers intertwined with hers, warm, steady, real. "With or without approval, with or without the Church's blessing, I will marry Elizabeth Grayson today. The only question is whether you'll participate in the ceremony or be excluded from it." The ultimatum hung in the air like gunpowder waiting for a spark. Elizabeth's heart hammered against her ribs. This is it, the moment everything changes or falls apart. The bishop's stern face gave nothing away. He studied Adrian, then Elizabeth, then Charlotte, still clutching her roses with fierce determination. Finally, his gaze landed on the Dowager. "Your Grace, you are Margaret's mother. What say you?" The Dowager stood slowly, joints creaking, crossed the room with measured steps. Elizabeth braced herself for condemnation. She'll say no. She'll invoke Margaret's memory and damn us all. Instead, the old woman took both of Elizabeth's hands in hers. Her skin was paper-thin, spotted with age, but her grip was strong. Margaret loved fiercely. She chose Adrian against my wishes, against society's expectations, because she saw his heart beneath the title. Tears tracked down wrinkled cheeks. She would have wanted him to find love again, to give Charlotte a mother who truly sees her, and she would have loved you, I think, for bringing light back to her family. Elizabeth's vision blurred. Your Grace? Call me grandmother, if you'll permit an old fool a second chance at being family. The Dowager pulled her into an embrace. Over her shoulder, Elizabeth saw Victoria's expression, fury and defeat warring on those elegant features. The woman's mask had finally cracked completely. This is absurd, Victoria spat, voice shaking. You're all blind. She's a fortune hunter who seduced a grieving man and stole a child's affections through manipulation. Who's been offered £300 for a year's work, Adrian cut in coldly. Hardly a fortune. And her family's debts? I paid them this morning anonymously through my solicitor. Elizabeth doesn't even know yet. The contract is void. She's free to leave if she wishes. Elizabeth's head snapped toward him. He what? You paid them without telling me? Your brother is safe. You owe nothing. You're free to walk away from this engagement with no obligation. His eyes held hers. So tell me, Elizabeth, are you here for money or for love? Every eye in the room fixed on her. This was the test, the moment to prove Victoria wrong, To prove she wasn't what society would call her. Everyone is watching, judging, waiting for me to fail. Elizabeth stepped away from the dowager, away from Adrian, stood alone in the center of the room, feeling the weight of judgment like physical pressure. 3 months ago, I was desperate, she said quietly. My family was drowning in debt, and I would have done anything to save them. So yes, I came here for money, for survival, for the promise of £300 that could keep my brother from prison. Victoria's smile was victorious. The bishop frowned. But that's not why I stayed. Elizabeth's voice grew stronger. I stayed because a little girl needed someone to see past her silence to her soul. I stayed because a man needed someone to prove that love doesn't die with loss, that hearts can heal, that happiness is possible even after tragedy. I stayed because this broken house needed someone to breathe life back into it. She turned to Adrian. If you'd paid me £1,000, 10,000, I'd still be standing here, because I don't love your title or your fortune. I love the man who has nightmares and won't admit it, who plays piano in the dark when he thinks no one's listening, who looks at his daughter like she's the sun and moon combined, who let himself be vulnerable enough to risk his heart again. Adrian's throat worked. His eyes glistened. So yes, Your Grace, Your Eminence, Lady Victoria, I'm going to marry the Duke of Blackwood. Not because I want to be a duchess, but because I want to wake up every morning next to the man I love and raise the daughter who chose me as her mother. The silence was absolute, profound. Then Charlotte started clapping. The sound was pure, joyful, uninhibited. Within seconds, the dowager joined her. Then Harrison from the doorway, then the other servants who'd been eavesdropping shamelessly. The bishop's stern face cracked into something almost resembling a smile. Well, that was quite a declaration, Miss Grayson. Will you marry us? Adrian asked. The old man sighed, but there was warmth in it. Against my better judgment, yes. God knows the church could use more love and less politics. Victoria made a strangled sound, fury and humiliation mixing into something ugly. Without another word, she swept from the room, spine rigid, skirts swishing with indignation. Let her go, the dowager said softly. Some people are too poisoned by ambition to recognize happiness when they see it. At 5 o'clock, in the chapel of Blackwood Manor, Elizabeth Grayson became the Duchess of Blackwood. The ceremony was small, intimate. Candles flickered, casting golden light that smelled of beeswax and roses. The dowager wept openly, dabbing her eyes with lace. Charlotte held the rings with solemn importance, her small face glowing. Elizabeth's mother and Thomas stood witness, still bewildered but no longer objecting, having arrived that afternoon to find chaos transformed into celebration. When Adrian lifted her veil, his eyes held promises beyond words. The kiss was gentle, reverent, the beginning of forever. That night, after Charlotte finally slept, after the dowager retired with whispered apologies and plans to visit monthly, after Elizabeth's family departed with enough money to start fresh and Thomas's debts permanently erased, Adrian found his wife in the library. His wife. The word still felt like miracle. Having second thoughts now that it's too late, he kept his tone light, but genuine fear lurked beneath. Elizabeth turned from the window, moonlight painting her luminous. The silk of her nightgown whispered, "Only one thought. How did I get so impossibly lucky?" She thinks she's lucky, after everything society will say about her. He crossed to her, gathering her close. She smelled of lavender and happiness. "I'm the lucky one. You took a dead man and taught him to live again. We taught each other." Her fingers traced his jaw, feeling stubble. "You showed me that bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing love despite it. It's risking your heart even when the world says it's foolish." They stood wrapped in each other as moonlight spilled through windows. Outside, Blackwood Manor, once a tomb, now hummed with life. Servants laughed in the kitchen. A dog barked. Somewhere, a clock chimed contentment. "Do you think Margaret would approve?" Elizabeth whispered. Adrian considered, his heart no longer clenching at her name. "I think she'd be furious it took me so long to find you. She never had patience for my stubbornness, used to tell me I overthought everything." The image made them both smile. Not painful now, just bittersweet. Memory without agony. Later, as they climbed the stairs, husband and wife, Duke and Duchess, two broken souls made whole, Adrian paused outside Charlotte's room. "Check on her with me?" They found their daughter sprawled across her bed, clutching a new doll Elizabeth had given her. Her face held peace neither of them had ever seen before. The nightmares were gone, the silence broken. The ghost child transformed into a living, laughing girl. "She's healing," Elizabeth breathed. "We all are." And it was true. Happiness wasn't the absence of pain. It was learning that pain could teach you the value of joy, that grief could deepen your capacity for love, that sometimes the bravest thing you could do was let yourself be vulnerable enough to try again. This is what healing looks like, Elizabeth thought, not forgetting the wounds, but learning to live fully despite them. As they closed Charlotte's door and walked toward their own chambers, their own future, Elizabeth felt the weight of truth settling. Every wound she'd endured led her here. Every fear she'd faced made her strong enough to choose love over safety. Every moment of desperation had been preparation for this, for choosing hope when logic said to protect herself. She understood now. Courage wasn't about being fearless. It was about acting despite terror. It was about a governess saying yes to a broken duke, about a traumatized man risking his heart again, about a silent child choosing to speak. "I love you," Adrian whispered against her hair. "Every day for the rest of my life, I will choose you. And I'll choose you." Her heart was full, overflowing. "We'll choose each other every single day." Because that's what love was, not fate or destiny or accident, but choice. The daily decision to stay, to fight, to believe when believing felt impossible. And as they entered their chambers, their new life, Elizabeth knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Society would whisper, some would cut them, the tongue would make their displeasure known in 1,000 small cruelties. But they would face it together. Three people who'd lost everything, finding everything they needed in each other. A duke who learned that love was worth more than reputation. A governess who discovered her worth had nothing to do with her station. And a little girl who found her voice by finding a family that listened. Outside, stars wheeled overhead. Inside Blackwood Manor, a fire crackled in the hearth, and somewhere in the house, if you listened carefully, you could hear music. A lullaby played on piano, floating through corridors that once held only silence. Margaret's song, but also Charlotte's and Elizabeth's and Adrian's, a song of grief transformed into joy, of brokenness rebuilt into wholeness, of three wounded hearts learning that sometimes the deepest scars mark where the strongest healing begins. They had found each other in darkness, and together they would walk into light.